Hi there. Thanks, Tim. As Tim mentioned, I'm Congressman Luke Messer, and I want to thank you for being here today to talk about the importance of equal opportunity in education for every American child, or as we commonly call it, school choice. I grew up in public schools, and I was raised in a single-parent home by my mother in rural Indiana. I had no chance of going to a private school when I was growing up, but I didn't need to. My mom worked 40 hours a week plus overtime at the Delta Faucet factory to put food on the table. I was blessed with great teachers and an active parent who cared about my future, but too many kids don't have that. They're locked in failing schools, falling behind, and frankly, losing faith in America. In fact, last year, only 64% of Americans surveyed said they still believe in the American dream. That means more than a third don't. And that's the lowest such result in nearly 2 decades. The question is why? Well, we've all seen the numbers. Paychecks are shrinking, the middle class is getting squeezed, folks are working harder, and their wages are stagnant. The cost of necessities like making dinner and going to the doctor just keep going up. As my good friend Jim Jordan, Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio often says, right now the middle class sees the rich getting bailed out, they see the poor getting a handout, and they feel like they're stuck in the middle paying for both. So who's advocating for working Americans? As a party, as a movement, as a cause? The answer to that question needs to be us. We have to champion solutions that help working families succeed. So once again, they feel in control of their own destiny and continue to believe in the American dream. That fundamental idea that your future will be determined by your ability and your integrity and your work ethic, not by your zip code. Now, this is heavy lifting, and I'm remembered of an old joke by Yakov Smirnoff. Many in this room would know that Yakov Smirnoff was a comedian of the 1980s. He was a Russian who came to America in the era of the Cold War, and he would always have sort of amazing insights about the difference between life in a Soviet world and life in America. And he told a story of going to a grocery store. He walked down one aisle and he'd see powdered iced tea, just add water and poof, you've got tea. And then go down another aisle and see powdered orange juice. You just add water and poof, you got orange juice. Go to a third aisle and see powdered milk. You just add water and poof, you got milk. Came to a fourth aisle and he saw baby powder and he said, "Oh, what a country," right? And the reality is some problems don't have just add water solutions. Some problems it takes a while to be able to solve. As Ronald Reagan used to say, there are no easy answers, but there are simple ones. And that's what's so exciting about school choice. It's not a silver bullet, but it does represent one of the simple ways to get working Americans back on track and to help poor in our communities climb out of poverty. American families don't want educational choices made artificially or from the top down by politicians and the education bureaucrats. They want those choices made naturally, organically, and from the bottom up by parents and teachers. When we embrace equal opportunity in education for every American, when we support school choice, we empower every American family. Now, I know some would suggest that a conservative agenda should start and end with abolishing the Department of Education. And frankly, as a conservative, I'm sympathetic to that idea. I've read the Constitution, and there's no mention of a federal Department of Education anywhere in there. Moreover, in the last 35 years, the amount of money we've spent on K-12 education at the federal level has increased by 400%. And frankly, we all know the outcomes are terrible. According to the latest PISA rankings, our kids perform below average in math, science, and reading when compared to students in 65 other countries and economies. So I get it. The old approach isn't working. But when we lead with an agenda that abolishes the Department of Education, we sound to parents like we don't care about their number one priority, their kids. That's why I love this issue. It puts us on the side of the American family and puts us on the side of America's kids and puts the Democrats in the position of defending an indefensible status quo, where the education bureaucracy decides what's best for every child. We need a different approach, an open school system where parents are put back in charge. Now, I'm not suggesting a federal Department of School Choice, but I am suggesting we move conservative education reform by crafting legislation at the federal level that empowers parents, pushes existing federal dollars back to the states, and incentivizes choice at the local level. I've seen firsthand the difference education reform can make for families and students in my home state of Indiana. As the then president of School Choice Indiana, I was in the middle of Indiana's school choice revolution in 2011. Back then, under the leadership of then Governor Mitch Daniels and a Republican-led state house, Indiana passed the most expansive school choice program in the country. Indiana has an all-of-the-above approach to educational opportunity. In addition to robust charter schools, public school choice, homeschool, and online learning programs, the Indiana Choice Scholarship Program gives voucher scholarships to students from middle and low-income families to attend the private school of their choice. The results have been nothing short of remarkable. In the first year of the program, 3,900 students enrolled. A little over 3 years later, the program now has almost 30,000 students. Based on those market trends alone, we're clearly meeting a need. I've seen rallies of thousands of parents and students at the Indiana State House, representing a mosaic of every color and race in our state, chanting support for this program. I've talked to parents and seen the tears in their eyes as they hug a teacher or a principal from their new school in appreciation of their new opportunity for their child. As a fringe benefit to educational choice, because many private schools are also religiously focused, thousands of students are getting a faith-based education their parents couldn't otherwise afford. My son Hudson has noticed a marked difference between the private Catholic school education he was getting in Indiana and the education that he's getting now. As he put it, "Dad, at my new school, they only care about what I know." And what he meant is they're not teaching him about faith and values. So what does all of that mean for Washington? As we have in states across the country, it's time to plant a flag here. I'm intrigued by the number of presidential candidates who are embracing school choice and including equal educational opportunity in their platforms. But any policy measures we want to see enacted in 2017 or beyond have to start taking root now. This room knows that Ronald Reagan's tax agenda of the 1980s was shaped by Jack Kemp and others supply-side economic policies debated through the 1970s. Those policies emphasized individual responsibility, reduced government spending, and a growth-oriented approach to taxes. We need to lay a similar groundwork now for a free market-based education system that emphasizes educational choice in all its forms. This new approach would empower families, reduce the influence of the top-down federal government bureaucracy, and produce better outcomes. It's been my privilege, as Tim mentioned, to work with Heritage and our prior speaker, Senator Mike Lee, to introduce the Enhancing Educational Opportunities for All Students Act. It's an opt-in program that gives every state the option, if they choose, to convert nearly $14.5 billion in existing annual federal education funds into scholarships that would follow students to the public or private school of their choice. Second, it expands the way parents can use 529 education savings accounts, allowing them to be used for pre-K through high school expenses, as well as for college expenses. Third, it gives parents the opportunity to use Coverdale education savings accounts for qualified homeschool education expenses. And finally, it eliminates contribution limits on these accounts so parents can maximize their use as a financial planning tool for their child's education. I also founded the Congressional School Choice Caucus to expand educational freedom, empower families, and promote policies that increase high-quality educational opportunities for every child. As chair of this caucus, I've had the opportunity to visit charter schools, private schools, and online learning centers across the country. One of the most impressive experiences I had was right here in Washington, D.C. at Basis Charter School. Basis teaches an elite advanced liberal arts curriculum utilizing Latin, algebra, and advanced science concepts in the 5th grade. The results of the school are off the charts. They're educating kids from every single zip code in the Washington, D.C. area. I participated in a question and answer session after these classes with the students, and they were smart, talked a lot about hard work, extra hours after class, and the challenges of their curriculum. They were proud of their opportunity. But their number one concern was how we could ensure that their friends, neighbors, and relatives had the same kind of opportunity. That's powerful. These kids recognize that the freedom to choose their learning environment has changed the trajectory of their life. And they want those same opportunities to be available for others. Thankfully, there are a number of solid pieces of legislation proposed this year that could help us do just that. In addition to the bill I just referenced, Senator Lamar Alexander has the Scholarship for Kids Act, which should be debated. This bill, which I've co-sponsored in the House, gives states the option to use $24 billion in federal education funds and turn that into scholarships that directly follow the child. If this bill became law, about 11 million students who are eligible for Title I funds could receive an average of $2,100 to use toward an education that best suits their needs. Senator Tim Scott's Choice Act seeks to expand educational choices for children with disabilities, those from military families, and kids from lower income families as well. But we need your help. We're having an event here in Washington, D.C. on January 28th during the National School Choice Week to celebrate the progress that's been made with the DC voucher and charter school programs, and commit ourselves to a broader effort. I'd encourage you all to attend and listen to the House and Senate leaders that participate and encourage us too. Let the Democrats defend the old way. Let them defend the indefensible, the status quo that's failing too many families. We can be the champion of the American family. It's really this simple. In modern America, your destiny should not be determined by what family you were born into or what zip code you live in. This is the civil rights issue of our time, and it's a political issue we can win on. Let's be the party, the movement, the cause that fights for the American family and make sure that every American has a real chance to succeed. Friends, there are better days ahead. Better opportunities lay just beyond the horizon. If we stand on our principles, stand with the American family, and demand that parents have a choice so every kid has a chance. Thank you.